The storm outside turned his garage into a cathedral of shadows and steel. Rain carved silver rivers down grimy windows. Thunder rolled like distant artillery. Then she appeared, a vision bleeding elegance onto his oil-stained floor. Midnight silk clung to curves that belonged on billboards, not crumpled against concrete walls. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Mascara traced dark tears down cheekbones, sharp enough to cut glass. Those emerald eyes, once worth millions in endorsement deals, now flickered with pure, primal terror. "Please," she whispered, voice silk wrapped around broken glass. "Don't touch me." But Alex Thompson's hands had always moved before his mind could stop them. His weathered fingers found her trembling shoulder, and the world tilted. What lurked beneath that porcelain perfection would drag him into a darkness he never knew existed. 24 hours earlier, darkness pressed against Alex's bedroom windows like black velvet. The alarm clock screamed at 4:30, its red digits burning holes in his retinas. His phone buzzed with notifications, missed calls from First National Bank, text messages from his landlord marked urgent. The coffee maker gurgled to life downstairs, programmed the night before like everything else in his carefully controlled routine. His wedding ring caught the hallway light as he reached for yesterday's work shirt. The gold band felt heavier each morning, an anchor dragging him toward memories he couldn't afford to revisit. Lily's voice floated from the kitchen, high and musical, despite the early hour. "Daddy, we're out of cereal again." The refrigerator hummed its lonely song, nearly empty except for wilted lettuce and expired milk. Alex pulled on his Thompson's auto repair shirt, the fabric soft from countless washings and stained with evidence of honest work. His reflection in the bathroom mirror showed a man older than his 34 years. Grey threads wove through brown hair, and worry lines carved deep valleys around eyes that had seen too much. The face staring back belonged to someone who'd stopped believing in second chances. The drive to Riverside Elementary passed in comfortable silence. Lily pressed her nose against the passenger window, watching other families begin their morning routines. Soccer mums in gleaming SUVs, fathers in pressed suits checking their phones, children with backpacks heavy with possibility. Alex's pickup truck wheezed and coughed, the transmission slipping on every hill like an old man climbing stairs. "Daddy, are we poor?" Lily's question hit him square in the chest. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as he searched for words that wouldn't sound like lies. "No, sweetheart. We're just being careful with money right now." Thompson's Auto Repair sat on the corner of Industrial Avenue and Desperation. The building squatted between a pawn shop and a laundromat that never seemed to close, its windows glowing like tired eyes in the morning gloom. Alex had bought the place 3 years ago with Sarah's life insurance money and dreams of building something permanent for Lily. Now it felt more like a mausoleum than a business, filled with the ghosts of better times. The neon sign flickered erratically, the R in repair, dark and lifeless. Inside, his phone rang with the persistence of a bill collector. "Mr. Thompson, this is First National Bank regarding your overdue mortgage payment." The voice on the other end belonged to Mrs. Henderson, who'd been calling twice daily for the past week. Her tone carried the polite ruthlessness of someone who'd perfected the art of financial destruction. "Your payment is now 47 days overdue. We'll need the full amount by close of business today, or we'll have no choice but to begin foreclosure proceedings." Alex stared at the stack of invoices on his desk, each one a prayer unanswered. Morrison Construction owed him $1,800 for fleet maintenance. The Peterson family still hadn't paid for their transmission repair. Good people, honest people, but broke like everyone else in this forgotten corner of the city. By noon, his last hope evaporated like steam from an overheated radiator. Morrison Construction called to cancel their contract, apologizing with the hollow sincerity of corporate cost-cutting. "Nothing personal, Alex. Just business." The phone went dead, taking Alex's future with it. He pulled out his calculator and ran the numbers for the 100th time, hoping mathematics had somehow changed overnight. $2,800 short, with 18 hours until the bank foreclosed. The eviction notice taped to his kitchen table might as well have been his death warrant. The afternoon crawled by with the speed of cooling metal. No customers, no phone calls, no miracles. Alex sat on a milk crate surrounded by tools that couldn't fix his life, watching rain begin to tap against the garage roof like impatient fingers. The radio played classic rock between commercials for businesses he couldn't afford to patronize. Lightning split the sky, throwing harsh shadows across oil stains and broken dreams. He thought about Sarah, about promises he'd made beside a hospital bed, about the daughter sleeping peacefully in a house he was about to lose. That's when the BMW appeared through the storm like a silver ghost carrying salvation. The car moved with predatory grace, its headlights cutting through sheets of rain. German engineering at its finest. All smooth lines and quiet power. The kind of vehicle that cost more than most people made in a year. It glided to a stop outside his garage, engine purring with the confidence of precision machinery. Alex watched through rain-streaked windows as the driver's door opened with a whisper. She stepped out into the downpour, and his breath caught in his throat like smoke. Even soaked to the skin, she moved with the fluid elegance of someone born to be photographed. Her dress, midnight silk that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage, clung to her like liquid shadow. But something was wrong with the picture. Her movements were too careful, too controlled, like someone walking across broken glass in bare feet. One hand pressed against her ribs, the other clutched a purse worth more than his truck. She approached the garage with the hesitant steps of someone who'd never needed help before. "Please," she said, her voice carrying the cultured accent of private schools and country clubs. "I need help." Up close, Alex could see what distance had hidden. Her makeup couldn't quite cover the bruise along her jawline. Dark stains spotted her dress like spilled wine, but Alex knew blood when he saw it. "My car's making terrible noises," she said, gesturing toward the BMW with a trembling hand. "Grinding sounds, metal on metal. I can pay cash, whatever you charge." She reached into her purse with fingers that shook like autumn leaves, pulling out a roll of hundreds thick enough to choke a horse. The money felt real in Alex's hands, crisp and clean and impossible. $3,000. Enough to save his house, his business, his daughter's future. But warning bells clanged in his head like fire alarms. Women who drove $100,000 cars didn't show up at backstreet garages bleeding money and desperation. The rain hammered harder, turning the parking lot into a shallow lake. She glanced over her shoulder at every sound thunder rolling overhead, a distant siren, the metallic bang of a dumpster lid. Her eyes darted like a cornered animal's, wide and white-rimmed with fear. "Please," she said again, and this time her composure cracked like ice under pressure. "I don't have anywhere else to go." Alex studied her face, looking for the con, the angle, the catch that always came with easy money. Instead, he saw something that hit him like a punch to the gut. Recognition. Not of her face, though something nagged at the back of his memory like a half-remembered song. Recognition of desperation, of someone who'd run out of road and time and hope. "Pull it into the bay," he said finally, hitting the button that raised the overhead door. Relief flooded her features like sunrise after the longest night. But as she turned toward the car, Alex caught sight of something that froze his blood. Spiderweb cracks decorated the rear window in a pattern he'd seen before in Afghanistan. Bullet holes, and in the back seat, dark stains that definitely weren't wine. The BMW wasn't making mechanical noises. Someone had been shooting at it. Someone had been trying to kill the woman, now trusting him with her life. Grace Miller, that's the name she gave when he asked, though she hesitated like someone trying on clothes that didn't fit. She sat in the garage's cramped office while Alex pretended to examine her car, her designer heels clicking nervously against the concrete floor. Through the office window, he watched her check her phone every 30 seconds, then put it away like it might explode. Her purse sat open beside her, revealing glimpses of cash, credit cards, and something that glinted like metal. When she caught him looking, she snapped it shut with the speed of a mousetrap. "Find anything?" she asked, her voice too bright, too casual. Alex emerged from under the hood, wiping his hands on a shop rag stained with years of honest work. "Nothing wrong with this engine that a car wash won't fix," he said, watching her face carefully. "Alternator's fine, transmission's solid, battery's got plenty of juice." Grace went white as printer paper, her knuckles showing through pale skin as she gripped her purse. "That's impossible," I heard grinding, metal against metal. Terrible sounds. But Alex had spent 15 years listening to engines sing their mechanical songs. This BMW purred like a contented cat, every component working in perfect harmony. "Mom," he said gently, "whatever you're running from, it's not about your car." Her careful composure shattered like safety glass, leaving sharp edges that cut deep. She wrapped her arms around herself, rocking slightly in the plastic chair. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice thin as spider silk. "If they find me here, they'll kill you just for talking to me." Outside, a car engine rumbled past the garage too slowly, too deliberately. Headlights swept across the windows like searchlights hunting escaped prisoners. Grace pressed herself against the wall, breathing in sharp, shallow gasps that fogged the air. "Turn off the lights!" "Turn." "Now!" Alex hit the main switch, plunging them into darkness broken only by the red glow of the exit sign. Through the blinds, he watched a black sedan with government plates circle the block like a shark scenting blood. The kind of car that belonged to people who cleaned up messes for a living, who made problems disappear in the middle of the night. "How much trouble are you in?" he asked quietly. Grace laughed, but the sound held no humor, only the hollow echo of someone who'd seen the bottom of human nature. "The kind that ends with unmarked graves and missing person reports that never get filed." She pulled something from her purse, a small USB drive that caught the emergency lighting like a silver bullet. "Victor Kane," she said, the name dropping into the silence like a stone into still water. "Billionaire real estate developer, political kingmaker, philanthropist, clean as fresh snow if you only read the newspapers." And her fingers closed around the drive like she was holding a live grenade. "This contains 5 years of financial records. Money laundering, offshore accounts, bribery, extortion, Enough evidence to put him away for 3 lifetimes. Alex stared at the innocent-looking device, understanding dawning like sunrise over a battlefield. "Let me guess," he said, pieces falling into place with mechanical precision. "You worked for him. Got too close to something you shouldn't have seen." Grace nodded, shame and defiance warring across her features like storm clouds. "I was his companion. High-class escort for business associates, arm candy for political fundraisers. Beautiful, silent, disposable." Her voice carried the bitter taste of self-loathing. "But men talk when they think you're just decoration. They forget you have ears, a brain, a memory. They forget you might be recording everything they say." The black sedan passed again, closer this time. Alex counted 4 men inside, their faces hidden behind tinted glass and professional anonymity. They moved with the coordinated precision of a military unit, checking sight lines and escape routes with practiced efficiency. "They're here," Grace breathed, her voice barely audible above the rain drumming on the roof. "Dear God, they found me." One man approached the front entrance while another circled toward the back. The remaining 2 positioned themselves with clear views of both exits. These weren't street thugs or hired muscle. These were professionals. "Is there another way out?" Alex asked, his mind shifting into tactical mode learned in dusty Afghan villages. Grace shook her head, panic replacing the careful control she'd maintained. "Just the office window, but it's a 12-foot drop onto concrete." The front door rattled as someone tested the handle with the confidence of someone who expected it to open. Then came the knock 3 sharp raps that sounded more like a summons than a request. "Mr. Thompson," a cultured voice called through the steel. "We know you're in there. Open up. We just want to talk." Alex grabbed a tire iron from his workbench, the cold steel familiar in hands that remembered how to fight. Some skills never left you, no matter how much you wanted them to. War had taught him that violence was sometimes the only language bullies understood. "Stay behind me," he whispered to Grace. "Whatever happens, don't let them take you alive." Her eyes widened, but she nodded with the grim understanding of someone who'd already seen too much darkness. The back door exploded inward with a crash that shook dust from the rafters. 3 men entered like soldiers clearing a hostile building. Professional, coordinated, deadly. "Victor Kane sends his regards," the lead man said, his voice carrying the polished confidence of expensive education and unlimited resources. He stood tall and silver-haired, with the kind of tan that came from country club golf courses and Caribbean tax shelters. His suit probably cost more than Alex made in 6 months, but the gun holstered beneath his jacket was strictly functional. "Miss, Miller has something that belongs to our employer. We're here to retrieve it." His smile held all the warmth of winter moonlight on tombstones. Alex stepped forward, placing himself between Grace and certain death. "She's under my protection now." The words surprised him as much as they seemed to surprise the intruders. He hadn't protected anyone since his last tour overseas, hadn't wanted that responsibility after Sarah died. But something about Grace's terror awakened instincts he'd thought were buried with his military service. "You want her, you go through me." The tire iron felt weightless in his grip, an extension of his will made manifest in steel. The silver-haired man's smile widened like a crack in ice. "Mr. Thompson, you have no idea what you're interfering with. Victor Kane owns this city. Judges, politicians, police commissioners. They all dance to his tune." He straightened his tie with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never faced real consequences. "You're just a failed mechanic with a sick business and a daughter at Riverside Elementary. 7 years old, isn't she? Lily. Such a pretty little girl." The threat hung in the air like poison gas, seeping into every corner of Alex's world. Rage exploded through Alex's chest like white phosphorus, burning away everything except the need to protect what mattered most. Nobody threatened his daughter. Nobody! The tire iron moved with deadly precision, catching the silver-haired man across the temple before he could draw his weapon. He spun into the wall like a broken marionette, blood streaming from his scalp. The second man reached for his gun, but found Alex's elbow in his throat instead, crushing his windpipe with surgical precision. The garage erupted into chaos gunshots, breaking glass, the sharp crack of bones meeting unyielding steel. Grace screamed as bullets sparked off concrete and metal, filling the air with deadly fragments. Alex dove behind a tool chest, dragging her with him into temporary shelter. "The drive!" he shouted over the gunfire. "Upload it somewhere. Send it everywhere you can think of." Her fingers flew over her phone screen with desperate efficiency, uploading files to social media, news outlets, FBI tip lines, anywhere that might listen. The silver-haired man struggled to his feet, blood painting his face in abstract patterns. "You stupid bastard! You have no idea what you've done." "I've done what should have been done years ago," Grace called back, her voice stronger now, filled with righteous fury. "Victor Kane is finished." Her phone screen showed upload progress bars climbing toward completion 80%, 90, 95. The remaining gunmen advanced with professional patience, using covering fire to close the distance. But they were too late. The uploads finished with a soft chime that sounded like church bells announcing salvation. Evidence of Kane's crimes flooded the internet like a digital tsunami, spreading faster than bullets or threats or fear. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it had started. In the ringing silence that followed, sirens wailed in the distance, not one or two, but a convoy of justice rolling through the night. The silver-haired man's radio crackled to life, with increasingly frantic reports. "Sir, we have a problem. FBI, state police, news vans. The whole damn cavalry is coming down Industrial Avenue." His face went ash-gray as he processed the magnitude of Grace's betrayal. "Kane's going to feed us to the sharks for this." "No," Grace said, rising from behind the tool chest with blood on her dress and steel in her spine. "He's going to prison." The sirens grew louder, accompanied by the distinctive whop, whop, whop of helicopter blades slicing through rain-soaked air. Searchlights blazed through the garage windows like miniature suns, turning night into day. A bullhorn voice cut through the chaos with bureaucratic authority. "This is the FBI. The building is surrounded. Come out with your hands visible." Kane's men looked at each other with the hollow eyes of soldiers who'd just realized they were fighting for the losing side. What followed felt like controlled chaos federal agents in tactical gear, paramedics checking wounds, crime scene photographers documenting evidence. Grace disappeared into a sea of suits and badges, swept away by marshals who spoke in hushed tones about witness protection and safe houses. Alex found himself sitting on the back of an ambulance, watching his garage transform into a crime scene while a medic cleaned cuts he didn't remember receiving. The bullet holes in his walls looked like abstract art, each one a reminder of how close death had come to his door. But tucked beneath a wrench on his workbench, folded with origami precision, was an envelope thick with $100 bills. More money than he'd seen in years, enough to save his house and business and future. A note in elegant handwriting read, "For giving me back my life when I'd forgotten it was worth saving. Thank you." G. Below that, a phone number and an address in careful script. Alex stared at the paper until the words blurred, overwhelmed by emotions he'd thought were dead and buried with his wife. 3 months later, autumn painted the city in shades of gold and rust. Thompson's auto repair hummed with activity as customers arrived from across the state, drawn by the story of the mechanic who'd stood up to a billionaire crime boss. Alex hired 2 full-time mechanics and bought equipment that actually worked, transforming his garage from a tomb into something resembling hope. Lily's college fund grew fat with money from grateful clients and a federal reward program that recognized ordinary citizens who did extraordinary things. Life, it seemed, had remembered how to be good again. Grace found him on a Tuesday evening when the air carried promises of winter. She looked different, healthier, younger somehow, wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of designer armor. Her hair fell naturally around her shoulders, free from the artificial perfection that had once been her prison. But her eyes remained the same impossible green that had haunted his dreams since that storm-torn night. "Hi," she said simply, as if 3 months hadn't passed in silence. "I heard you were doing well." The words hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. "You look good," Alex replied, and meant every syllable. The haunted desperation was gone, replaced by something he'd never seen before. Peace. Real, hard-won, genuine peace. "The trial went well?" She nodded, settling into the office chair like she belonged there. "Victor Kane got life without possibility of parole. His organization collapsed like a house of cards once people realized which way the wind was blowing." Her smile carried the satisfaction of justice finally served. "Turns out I wasn't the only one keeping records." Half his employees were wearing wires by the end. They talked until the garage lights dimmed and the street grew quiet around them. About the trial, about her new job counseling abuse survivors, about his plans to expand the business into something Sarah would have been proud of. But mostly they talked about second chances, about how sometimes the worst nights of your life led to the best mornings you never expected. When she finally stood to leave, Alex watched her walk to a modest Honda Civic parked beneath the streetlight. No more luxury cars, no more dangerous games, just a woman reclaiming her life one careful step at a time. Grace came back the following week, and the week after that. Always in the evening when Lily was doing homework, always with coffee and stories about the women she helped at the shelter. She spoke about survivors finding their voices, about strength discovered in the darkest places, about healing that happened one conversation at a time. Lily took to her immediately, chattering about school friends and playground politics, while Grace listened with the patience of someone who understood the value of being truly heard. Alex found himself looking forward to these visits, marking time between them like a sailor counting days until shore leave. December arrived with snow that fell like benediction, covering the city's scars in pristine white. Grace brought Chinese takeout and a proposition wrapped in careful words. "I've been thinking," she said, watching Lily construct elaborate fortune cookie fortresses on the office desk, "about fresh starts and new beginnings, about what it means to build something real instead of just surviving." She reached across the table, her fingers finding his with the tentative touch of someone still learning to trust. "I know we've both been broken. But maybe broken things can be fixed if you have the right tools." Alex studied her face in the warm light of the office, looking for shadows of the terrified woman who'd collapsed through his door 8 months ago. Instead, he saw strength forged in fire, beauty deepened by survival, wisdom earned through pain. "I'm not good at this," he admitted quietly. "Relationships, trust, letting people close enough to hurt me. Last time I opened my heart completely, it got buried in Section 7 of Mount Hope Cemetery." The words tasted like ashes, but they needed to be said. Some truths were too heavy to carry alone. "I'm not her," Grace said with simple certainty. "And you're not him. We're just two people who found each other in the dark and decided to turn on the lights." Outside, snow continued to fall with the persistence of hope, covering old wounds in temporary perfection. Lily looked up from her architectural project, grinning at something she'd discovered in her fortune cookie. "Mine says happiness comes to those who wait," she announced with the gravity of someone delivering profound news. "What does yours say, Grace?" Grace cracked open her cookie with the delicacy of someone handling precious things. "The best things in life are worth fighting for," she read aloud. Her eyes found Alex's across the table, reflecting the warmth of the office lights. "Sometimes fortune cookies get it exactly right." Alex opened his own cookie with hands that trembled slightly, unfolding the paper strip like a map to buried treasure. "Home is not a place, but a feeling. Well," he said with a laugh that sounded suspiciously like relief, "I guess the universe has developed a sense of humor." 2 years later, Alex stood in the same garage where their story had begun. But everything was different. The bullet holes had been repaired, the walls painted bright white that reflected light instead of absorbing shadows. New equipment gleamed under LED bulbs, and the waiting area looked more like a coffee shop than an auto repair office. The sign outside read, "Thompson and Associates Auto Repair," with Grace's credentials as business manager listed in smaller print below. Success, it turned out, was measured not in dollars but in the ability to sleep peacefully at night. Lily, now 9 and possessed of wisdom that sometimes startled adults, sat at the reception desk completing homework, while Grace balanced books on a laptop computer. The easy domesticity of it all still amazed Alex, how naturally they'd fallen into rhythms of shared responsibility and quiet contentment. Grace looked up from her screen, caught him staring, and smiled the way she did when she thought nobody was watching. The expression held secrets, but good ones now, the kind that built up instead of tearing down. "Remember when you thought I was just some spoiled rich girl with car trouble?" she teased, closing the laptop and stretching like a cat discovering sunshine. Alex laughed, the sound coming easier these days, more frequent and genuine. "I remember thinking you were going to get me killed. Turns out we were both spectacularly wrong about everything." Lily giggled from her position at the desk, looking up from math problems that seemed designed to torture 4th graders. "Daddy, you were really dumb if you didn't know Grace was perfect from the very beginning." The bell above the front door chimed as their last customer of the day departed, satisfied with Alex's work and Grace's customer service. Alex flipped the sign to "Closed" and dimmed the main lights, leaving only the warm glow of the office lamps. This was his favorite time of day, when the world outside faded away and left just the 3 of them in their circle of light and love and possibility. The garage felt less like a workplace now and more like the foundation of something permanent and good. Grace stood and moved to the window that overlooked the street where their story had begun on that storm-torn night. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd gone to a different garage?" she asked, her voice soft with contemplation. Alex joined her at the window, slipping his arms around her waist in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing. "Probably nothing good," he said honestly. "But you didn't. You came here, to me, exactly when we both needed saving most." Snow began to fall again, just as it had that December night when they'd first talked about broken things and the tools required to fix them. But this time, the garage was warm and bright, filled with the sound of Lily's laughter and the quiet contentment of a family that had found its way home through the darkest places. Alex watched the snowflakes dance in the streetlight and realized that sometimes the most beautiful stories began with someone saying, "I need help," to exactly the right person at exactly the right moment. "We should head home," Grace said softly, but neither of them moved from the window. Home was the house they'd bought together 6 months ago, a 2-story colonial with a big yard where Lily could play and Grace could tend the flower garden she'd always dreamed of having. But home was also this standing together in the garage where they'd first discovered that love could bloom in the darkest soil, watching snow fall on the anniversary of their salvation. "One more minute," Alex murmured, tightening his arms around the woman who'd changed everything simply by walking through his door. "I want to remember this exactly as it is." Grace leaned back against his chest, her hand finding the simple gold band on her finger, a perfect match to the one that had replaced his old wedding ring. "Remember what?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "This moment, this feeling, the way the snow looks tonight, the sound of our daughter laughing. All of it." Lily appeared beside them, having finished her homework and packed her school bag with the efficiency of someone who'd learned that preparation prevented problems. "Are we having a group hug without me?" she demanded, with the righteous indignation of a child denied her proper place in the universe. They opened their circle to include her, the 3 of them standing together at the window as snow covered the world in temporary perfection. "I love our family," Lily announced, with the absolute certainty of someone who'd never doubted where she belonged. "Me too, sweetheart," Alex said, his voice thick with emotions that had no adequate names. "Me too." And as they stood there watching snow fall on the garage where everything had changed, Alex thought about the strange mathematics of love, how 3 broken pieces could somehow add up to one perfect whole. Outside, the storm that had brought them together was just a memory now, replaced by gentle snow that promised rather than threatened, that blessed rather than cursed.